Hey you guys, so I want to put a stock on your radar. I want to look at this one because it is in that same space that I was in with Palantir, right? Palantir was an underdog. And I also look at this as an underdog as well because Palantir wasn't really on everyone's radar right away. And when I was introduced to it, it was a couple of dollars. This thing made its way up and we have come a long way. And this is the exact same way I look at this stock, which is Applied Digital. Ticker is ALPD. Okay. APLD. Okay. So definitely want you guys to watch this one. But there's also some things I want you to take into consideration on their back end. We've been seeing them in some partnerships with CoreWeave. We've been seeing them getting some major investment, and we've been seeing them invest heavily in their data center infrastructures and that AI space to kind of meet demand. So it's a lot on the back end that you also want to pay attention to if you're going to be doing this thing long term. I'm looking to trade it and do some long-term investment. I already have 153 shares in Applied Digital. I had them for a while. We've been up to about $40 on this one, but we're back in those 20s. And so I kind of wanted to revisit this one to say, okay, let's see how this thing plays out the remainder of this year as well as going into mid next year. And as we see the push further into AI, as we see more investment, as we see more demand for the data centers, hyperscalers at that, we can continue to see this thing make its way back up. So we're going to go to the charts. We're going to look at some news as well as go over to Google Finance because I want to kind of show you guys what I mean by looking at that back end and looking at those fundamentals before you make any type of decision to do this thing for long term. So the very first thing that I want to kind of do is come over to the charts and show you guys something that I have been watching with Applied Digital because I really wanted to see that they held up above that 2057 level that they came down to on Friday. Okay, and they held up just as I expected, and the thing pretty much pushed up, and this is currently where we are. So in the pre-market right now, we're sitting at 22.49, and I'm wanting to see this thing get back above 22.99. Now, that's on a short-term basis. Now, I am on a daily time frame, so if I go over to the 15-minute, but just kind of watching and see how this thing has really been kind of playing around this little the 22.94 rather, but we're up to 22.99. So it has, it has a bit of a way to go. We kind of down here at 22.49, and when I say a bit of a way to go, it's because you simply got to take into consideration what type of movement does a stock do, okay? And with Applied Digital, they can move $1, $1.50, $2 on a day, just depending on, how things are going, what news is hitting, and what's potentially driving it, okay? So just take that into consideration. So this can definitely be one of those ones that you can day trade, but I've been kind of looking at this thing and getting into on a long-term aspect and getting back down, and I really, really wanted to get as far down as possible, which is around that 2057. Now, when it did hit there, I will say I did miss my mark. I did not have my alert in the proper place, so I'm still watching it. So as you guys can see, when we did get down here Friday, this was like right at market open. And so getting in here and riding this thing up, it had a pretty nice drive up all the way to about 24.98 before that thing started to come back down. So of course I'm just patiently waiting for this thing to come back down to that $20.57 before, I kind of really make a move. So I am looking to get into some January calls for this thing if we can get back to my ideal entry here, and of course to kind of average down on a few shares. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to come over and read. There has been a lot of news of them getting more funding and financing investments. And of course, they have been working on different partnerships as well. So with this one, Applied Digital signs a $5 billion AI factory lease with the US-based hyperscaler. Okay, so just the points that we're looking at here. Let's see, the approximately 15-year lease will bring the company's total lease capacity to 600 MW across 2 campuses in North Dakota. Earlier this year, Applied Digital added 150 MW to its CoreWeave lease agreement on its Polaris Forge 1 campus. So I also been watching CoreWeave. I'll talk about that one in another video because they're getting back down to some of their IPO lows, and I definitely want to keep that one on my radar, and I want you to keep it on yours as well. Okay, so let's see here. It says shares of the data center company dropped more than 7% following the announcement, continuing a recent slump that sent the stock down over 20% in the past week. The stock has still almost quadrupled this year, and it definitely has, especially from when I first purchased my shares in Applied Digital. Okay, the lease amount announced on Wednesday it is for about 15 years and will deliver 200 megawatts of capacity at the company's Polaris Forge 2 campus in North Dakota. It brings the company's total lease 600 megawatts, what was just read. And so with this, we see just how strongly a lot of these companies are betting on AI. Applied Digital sort of made a pivot into the data center space. And so they've definitely been wrapping up on getting investments to make these, to meet the demand for it, as well as their partnerships that they've been getting into. And they are aiming for additional partnerships outside of their CoreWeave one. So it's definitely something worth watching. But this is something that I really, really, really want you guys to take into consideration when I say, you got to look at other things too, because one of the things we have to really, really think about is how much money they are dishing out. These hyperscalers are really costing a lot of companies a lot of money. And so even though you have the bigger brands bigger companies, right? You have Palantir, you have AMD, you have NVIDIA. Okay, cool. But look at how much money is being pushed out. And Applied Digital is one of those ones that is pushing out a ton of money to really get this thing going. And they have seen some pretty nice losses, okay? So year to date, it's up $15.29, about 200%. Not too bad. This is as we're seeing that push into AI over the last year, 195%. So, well, year to date, which was from January to up to this moment. So it still has had a nice run up. Okay, something to keep in mind, just for those of you who may be interested in day trading, its approximate day range $22.71 to $24.67. So they just kind of give you a previous day, and it just kind of give you a general idea of how it moves on the day. Okay, $1.50, $2, just all depends. All right, so you see the year range, $3.31 to $40.20, which was the highest that this thing has hit this year. Okay, so we, based on what we're seeing here, down almost about 50% based on this 22.94, and this thing was up at 40.20. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, this is where we're going to go. We're going to go down to the bottom, okay? And I want to go to their cash flow. Now, net income, negative $231 million. And then you see here where they have cash from operations. You have the cash from investing, cash from financing. If you have been keeping up with Applied Digital, you will know they have been getting investments and financing, a lot of financing in to meet demand, okay? And so one of the things that you kind of have to look at with the cash from the operations is down, y'all, almost 1,000%. This is why I say you got to look into the back so that you can make your own informed decisions about how you want to go about this thing. Because yes, it looks good at that $20 range. Yes, I do feel like this is a, underdog, the same way Palantir was, but I wrote it out and we have come a long way. But man, that is a lot that we've seen lost. And a lot of that can come from failing revenue. It can come from, just the higher cost of operations, which probably is with how much they're putting into their data center, inventory buildup, operation inefficiency. It can come from a lot. And so we definitely have to kind of keep this thing in mind when we are, investing in something for long term. We want to kind of come over and see what is the operation, what are their expenses, what is their revenue, how much money are they pushing out, how much money are they profiting, what are their margins, how could this factor into a longer term investment if you were to say, okay, I got 5 bands that I want to put on this thing because I'm betting on it. Okay, that's fine and all, but Do you understand where this thing could potentially go in the next 5 years? Have you looked at its previous 5 years? So that's just something I want you to take into consideration with any stock, not just Applied Digital. And so when I was sitting here kind of going through a couple of stocks and I came down and I noticed, I'm like, they really are pushing out a lot of cash. But the thing is, are they going to be able to sustain themselves with such massive, massive push? And because we're seeing so many so much doubt hitting Wall Street with this being an AI bubble, because Applied Digital's demand for the stock or just their move up comes from this massive push into AI. So if they're seeing this thing as a bubble and they're starting to kind of pull back a little bit, could Applied Digital be on the line for also seeing a pullback as this AI doubt kind of looms? Okay, so a lot to keep in mind. Definitely a lot to keep in mind. Let's see, the cash from investment, pretty much, like buying equipment, assets, acquisition, just the standard investments that you've probably been seeing. Okay, so it's definitely something you want to keep on your radar, to kind of play with long term. But if you're going to be trading, of course, if you're talking about some short term movements here, the volume, the thing is here, short term wise. But I initially want to look at this thing, long term aspect as well as long term in my trading. Okay, I have been also thinking about doing some covered calls on Applied Digital. I have not done any covered calls on it yet, but I have been thinking about it, just to kind of, little safe way on my trading with this one a little bit, because I have gotten these things at a much, much lesser cost than what they were. And I hate losing my shares in covered calls, because I know, I'll get paid out the value, but if I want to buy another 100 shares, then I would have to pay that $100 times whatever the new price is, right? So I kind of go easy when I had 153 on Applied Digital, and I have some on another platform too. So yeah, I go easy on that one, so I'm not losing my 100 shares, so I don't have to rebuy them. So just something that I want you guys to kind of keep on your radar. Currently, we're sitting at $22.94. Right now, pre-market is down about 56 cents. So definitely want to see how this thing plays out on today as well as this week, to see if we can get back down to this $20.57 or a little bit lower to potentially make a move there. So just something I want to kind of throw out there, put on your radar. It's less than 30, less than 50, less than 100. So it can very easily buy 4 shares in this thing, let it sit and see where it goes. But just take into consideration everything I kind of showed you guys on the back end. And I kind of didn't want this video to be too long, but you can definitely go through it and you can read all of those things. And in general, when you see negatives, hey, that's just telling you that they are operating at a loss. They're dishing out a ton of cash for operating, but they have been getting in a ton of investment. And then, of course, their partnerships and stuff like that. So I really feel like if they can achieve the additional partnerships that they are aiming for, then we can probably definitely see this thing push up a little bit. But of course, they still have a long way to go. So trading wise, just some levels that you guys can keep on your mind, keep on your radar. If they can get back over $22.99, I have $23.47, $24.09, and $24.98. Kind of working with a little bit of resistance up there, a little bit. And then them holding below this $22.99, I actually have $22.14, $21.35, and $20.54 down here at this bottom. Had a strong push up down here, and they rolled it back up. Okay, so this is just something to watch for the day. Then we're on a 15-minute time frame, but if you are looking for something a little bit longer term, then I would mostly be looking for some, nice setups to kind of take place on this daily. So when that right there presents itself, then we'll revisit. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.